The reality can never be broken down. You are identified with your ego. As long as you are identified with your ego, you are threatened by being broken down. And you are led from life to life. But though all this happens from the point of the limited mind, the reality remains ever the same. The real absolute self, that's what you are. You Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Nilambujasyamalakomalangam Sita Samaropita Vamabhagam Panau Maha Sayakacharu Chapam Namami Ramam Raghuvanshanatham. Adorations to Lord Rama, whose complexion is like a blue lotus, is very tender and delightful in appearance. Sita is seated on his left side and he is carrying a powerful bow and arrow in his hands. Sri Ramcharitmanas, Balakanda, verse number 143. The story of the descent of the Lord. And just to reiterate, the Swayambhu Manu and Shatarupa, whose lineage, all those who have born in that line, have been great personalities. That Swayambhu Manu and Shatarupa, having ruled over their kingdom and having done lots of righteous deeds, they decided to enter into Vanaprastha ashram for practicing profound austerity. And they went to pilgrimage centers, enjoyed satsanga, and in 143 verse, Dvadasa Achara Mantra Puni Japahi Sahita Anurag Vasudeva Pada Pankaruha Dampati Mana Atilag. They began to practice intense austerity, beginning with doing japa of 12-lettered mantra with great devotion. 12-letter mantra is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It's Krishna's mantra. Krishna mantra has two types. Om Shri Krishnaya Namah, simple. It's more extended. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tulsidas ji, in a subtle way, begins the whole Ramayana by saying Rama and Krishna are one. Because he begins with the whole austerity on the basis of Krishna mantra. Karahi ahara saka Balakanda, sumirahi brahma satchidananda. And practice of japa leads them to profounder austerities. They began to have for their food sag, spinach, etc., leafy vegetables. Phal, fruits. Kand, roots, like sweet potatoes, potatoes themselves. That's the simple meaning, which you can always understand. You can use simple meaning and you will be benefited. But turn your attention to profounder meaning. If you are practicing good karmas, that's sag. If you are doing loving service, that's fruit. And if you become more involved with dhyana, meditation, it becomes the root, kanda. Vari adhara mula phala tyage. First they started this type of food, and they continued turning their mind to Brahman, who is Satchidananda, absolute existence, absolute consciousness, absolute bliss. And for realizing Lord Hari, same Brahman, Satchidananda, Lord Hari, Krishna, Rama, they all mean the same thing. Vari adhara mula phala tyage. Now they turned from grosser food to subtler food. And that's literally, it says, they started just living on water. Those who study Kundalini yoga, when Kundalini, the whole Godward movement is interpreted in the terms of awakening of Kundalini Shakti. So, while Mooladhara is being awakened, the food is gross food. When Swadhisthana becomes involved, your ahar becomes vari, water. Water is the predominating element of Swadhisthana chakra. And fortunately, they don't start eating fire. That fire is Manipur chakra. But they do. They create fire around them in a storyline, and their whole mind is focused on fire, tapas. उर अभिलाष निरंतर होई, देखिए नयन परम प्रभु सोई. Always they have a ceaseless aspiration. May we behold the Supreme God, Supreme Lord, by our eyes. Reading this story, never take it literally. Spiritual darshan is not based on physical eyes. Otherwise, all that you need to check your specs. Again, to understand a little more extensively, those who are practicing Sagun Brahman, God, again, when people worship Sagun form, they are in different stages of sadhana. Those who are very advanced, they use Sagun form to enter into Nirgun Nirakar form. Let me give you the whole sequence. Sagun Sakar, first step. Sagun Nirakar, next step. Nirguna Nirakar, third step. The same deity they adopted, and as they begin to advance, their focus goes deeper and deeper. And ultimately, Nirgun Nirakar implies absolute Brahman. Rama is the name for in Tulsi Ramayana. That's Rama. Now, देखिए नयन परम प्रभु पासोई. First success is while you meditate upon Sagun Brahman, you must develop the sensitivity that Saguna Brahman is a channel leading to the Absolute Self. And when that vision develops while looking at a Sagun Brahman, suddenly your heart brings about a special mystic glimpse, a mystic touch. Then you have, that's what's called Darshan. You may interpret it in a visual form, because human personality is built with Maya's fabric. Saintly people experience glimpses of God. But when they start relating to others, they use words, and even depending upon what type of saintly people they are, if they are not at the highest level, they interpret what they experienced as the God. In other words, if you are devotee of any God, say Ram Bhakta, and suddenly in your dream, you see a swan coming. It accelerates your heart. Wake up, say, I had a darshan of Ram. How did he look like? He came in the form of a swan. Title does not write it down as a literal reality. Understand the figurative language. You have no choice but to use figurative language. Even for ordinary experience, go into a restaurant, eat something so delicious that you are thrilled by it. Now you want to relay this experience to others. You shift your tongue from in your mouth while talking. How delicious it was. But no matter how you describe it, it cannot be exactly the same. So, not get so confused or deluded. So many people go to tirthas, pilgrimage centers. Many of them they retain a kind of a story, having been there before the deity. I saw the deity smiling at me. Nothing, I mean, he's not speaking lies, it's correct. But That is positive, it is commendable that you had that, but this is not all of the darshan, this is an encouragement for you. So, developing the idea, I had a darshan 12 years back, full darshan. You are actually fooled by that. Because if you had really darshan, you should be coming closer and closer to God. And your darshan will not depend upon going somewhere far away. Figure that out. So, in storyline, that's their desire. May we see God with our very eyes. That means kind of mystically close to God. Who is that God? Aguna akhanda ananta anadi jahi chintahi paramartha vadi. That God is agun, beyond the three gunas, modes of nature. Akhand, you cannot break him down. Think of the space, akasha. Can you break this akasha and make a tear in it? Can't do that. All this I'm giving physical illustration that you have to understand more profoundly. Consciousness, Chaitanya, is like the sun. All the illuminations and reflections can be broken down. But that sun remains unaffected. A child may say, the sun had come into this pot of water, but I threw him away. To a child, it's a reality. Experience of transience, that's the reality of the limited mind. But all these experiences are like in the dream of Maya. The reality can never be broken down. You are identified with your ego. As long as you are identified with your ego, you are threatened by being broken down. And you are led from life to life. But though all this happens from the point of the limited mind, the reality remains ever the same. The real absolute self, that's what you are. You come in touch with that absolute self. Nature has not shut that fact out. In every time you go to deep sleep, you move away from your ego that you loved so much. And you don't miss it. Now, when you attain enlightenment, ego illusion fades, moves away completely. That's what is implying akhand. That Brahman is immutable, indivisible. Anant. There's no beginning or end for Brahman. In other words, Brahman is timeless. Time concept coexists with conditioned mind. How you view your time as a human being, that's different from how animals, birds view their time. And if that surprises you, even among human beings, all people do not view time exactly the same way. I'll give you more surprise. Even you don't experience time exactly in the same way. You are very happy. Time flies. If you are in distress, time sits on your head like a sloth. So, all this time-space related experiences depend upon conditioned minds. They are not reality. When you understand that, the reality is Anant, that self that's not conditioned by time, space, causation. Anadi, there's no beginning, again repeating the same point. There's no time concept with Brahman. Jehi chitta vahi paramarthavadi. When you want to attain liberation, you become devotee of Paramartha. Two words are important, Swartha and Paramartha. If your mind is not advanced, spiritually sensitive, then everything you look for on the basis of Swartha, what will please the ego. But when you have developed spiritual aspiration, awakened by satsanga and good karmas, now your focus goes towards Paramartha, the absolute. Now, these two words, again, in daily language, they are used with little different implications. In other words, whenever a person creates any project that will help others, they describe it as a Paramartha. He's doing Paramartha karmas. If all that we live for with terrible miserliness, he's a Swarthi person. Selfish. And the moment you start becoming generous, becoming Paramartha. There's a profound aspect of Paramartha, leading your whole life towards attaining liberation, moving towards Paramatma, the absolute self. Neti neti jahi vedi nirupa, nijananda nirupadhi anupa. That Paramatma, Brahman, Rama, is being described. He who has been described as neti neti, not this, not this, naughty, naughty. When you stay attached to physical body, naughty. Attached to pranas, naughty. Attached to mind, senses, attached to intellect, attached to ego, naughty, naughty. So that's the way the Vedas have described. Negate all, and that's Brahman. You don't negate, we're naughty. Restricted by knots, knots of the heart. Avidya, kama, karma, ignorance, vasanas, subtle desires, karmas, these are the knots. Nedi nedi jahi Veda Nirupa. The Vedas with all elaborate teachings, verbosities, come down to one simple conclusion, that Brahman is neti neti. Tired of having given so many words to describe, comes to conclusion, Brahman is not this, not this. You have to understand, I'm joking it, but you have to understand it in a proper context. Nijananda Nirupadhi Anupa. That Brahman is Ananda Swarup, the embodiment of bliss. Nirupadhi. There is nothing to limit Brahman. The simple example is always given in Vedanta. Sarparajju Nyaya. Snake on the rope. The rope is viewed by you as a snake. What causes that is called upadhi, a limiting adjunct. To give you a very simple illustration, there is a snowy white flower, and we are looking at that flower with a yellow spectacle. The flower becomes yellow. So we'll say the flower, due to the upadhi, is appearing yellow. That Brahman is beyond all upadhis, limiting all limitations. Shambhu Viranchi Vishnu Bhagavana Upajahi Jasu Ansate Nana. Now something people simply skip over. The statement, by his ansh, by a little part of him, by a little ray of him, countless Shivas, Brahmas and Vishnus arise. Now the confusing point. Is Rama Vishnu's avatar? Which Vishnu? Let me try to clear up the confusion. When you look at the sun, even to look at the sun when there is lots of clouds is a big challenge. But suppose you face the challenge, clouds have moved away. And you're looking at the sun, you say, I've seen the sun. That sun is like Brahma, Vishnu or Shiva. Put anyone there. But what you have seen, multiply that with millions, and still it is not the sun. So you have to figure that out. He will still say, I see the sun. Why are you saying that? But try to figure out what you see and what sun is. See the difference between. It is true what you see, the reality behind what you see is the sun. So when you are worshipping Sagun Brahman in a limited way, all Sagun Brahmans, they are essentially the same Brahman, the sun. But according to your viewing capacity, you are seeing that Brahman in form of gods. You can be devotee of Shiva, you can be devotee of Vishnu, you You can be devotee of Rama. In this context, I'm using Rama as same as Vishnu. But the real Brahman, which is Rama, the real sun, far transcends what you are seeing. Though you are not making any error, you are seeing the sun. It's quite inspiring. You are nourished by it. There is no, in other words, understand this is not a mistake, but this is the practical reality of your spiritual movement. Seeing the sun is a wonder, but don't come to the conclusion that that's the sun. And I have seen, fool. You are fooled. And to give you a little shocking way to tell you, if you really see the sun, it will not exist. It will burn up into ashes. Implying you will not exist as an individual saying, I have seen God, I have talked with God. Though all this is also, you find in scriptures inspiring episodes, but they have their limitations. They are all positive, inspiring, but that's not the absolute reality. If you have seen God, you have attained God realization. If you have attained God realization, then you are not there. A river has entered the ocean. It can't stand by and say, I have seen the ocean. So, let us handle this statement. That Rama, whom they were worshipping and adoring, out of the rays of that Brahman, countless Shivas arise, countless Brahmas arise, countless Vishnus arise. ऐसे वो प्रभु सेवक बस आई, भगत हेतु लीला तनु गाई. That is God. God supreme as He is. But don't be discouraged. Even though that God is beyond all limits, sevak bas ahai. If you develop seva bhav, living your life with the spirit of adoring God, serving God, flowing towards God. I am His servant. I am just His instrument. You do all that you do, but understand God is behind. Credit goes always to God. And that credit, you don't do it by being helpless. What can I do? So great goes to Him. But out of profound love, babies loving children, rather mothers, they give credit to everything that happens to the mother. Bhagat hetu leela tanu gayi. Now, in order to, that Prabhu, that God, comes under his devotee, as if he becomes a motherly supporter of the devotee. Now, I'll direct your attention to The Gita statement, same thing has been explained in the Gita. Upadrashtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwara. If a devotee develops divine love, that love grows. In the early stage of that love, God works as Upadrashta. Upadrashta means as like a mother is at the window watching what the baby is doing. And if the baby is going into difficult situation, now the mother will interfere. Otherwise not. If ordinary difficulty, the mother will allow it. Because the baby has to develop strength. That's called Upadrashta level. Anumantacha. Anumanta, now God is coming closer. And baby has done something praiseworthy. Helped a bird or petted a injured animal or whatsoever. The mother comes and pets the baby. You are doing wonderful. Anumanta. As you go on growing further, you find that God is your all in all. He is Bharta. He has taken up the responsibility of every detail of your personality. Until you become absolutely one with God. This is the whole picture of Godward movement. And that's what Tulsi says. As Sev Prabhu, Sevak Bas Ahai. This is Prabhu, who is Upadrashta, supervisor from a distance. Anumanta, coming close, petting you for good activities. Bharta, supporting you in all details. And as a result, you realize you and God are one and the same. And all this starts Sevak Bas, under the control of his own devotee. Bhagat hetu leela tanu gahai. And for the sake of his devotee, God expresses himself in different forms. Speaking in a totally different, in another way, when we talk about society. For the sake of devotees, God comes in the form of different avatars, different saints, Mahatmas, and all this is his Leela. He is not working like a householder, keeping an account of all these people and where they are, all sorts. The sun doesn't keep a record of how many plants have I nourished, etc., etc. जो यह बचन सत्य श्रुति भाषा तो हमारा पूजहि अभिलाषा. These are the statements of the Vedas, and Manu and Shatarupa, while they are doing their austerity, they hold on to these statements of the scriptures, and with the understanding that their aspiration will be fulfilled. Now it is another statement, mind-boggling. Ehi vidhi vite varasasat sahasabari ahar. Just living on drinking water. And to add to it, staying on one pose, Dhruva pose. How long? 6 hours? 6 whole day? No. 6,000 years. You take it literally, and God will be viewed most cruel. Try to understand. As I said, time is not a reality. If you allow your mind to become profoundly concentrated, now we are stepping beyond the practical reality of time. What people will accomplish in years, you can accomplish that in hours. So it can be described, you did meditative austerity for 100 years. But in practical life, you have done it in half an hour. Sambat sapta sahasra muni rahe samir ahar adhar. And for 7,000 years, they lived on air only. I've already pointed out to you the elements. Air element is the heart center. Having awakened the lower chakras, now they came up to the heart level. And the experience of time has become now totally different. What they accomplished for general souls going without sadhana, that accomplishment may be in thousands of lives. So what they would do in thousands of years, they did it. And so it's a kind of allegorical statement. They practiced austerity for 7,000 years, just on water. Prior to that, they had, first they started with the air, next they started with water. Or one way or other. Water is first and air after. Water is Swadhisthana chakra, little above the base. And air is at the heart center. Bahas barasha sahasatas tyageu soi. And this is not enough. 10,000 years they lived abandoning air. Not kumbhak for 3 minutes. And all this time they were standing on one foot. Thade rahe ek pad do. Vidhi harihar tap dekhi apara. Manu samipa aaye bahubara. While they were doing that austerity, Brahma came and said, Eva must ask any boon you want, I will grant. And he wouldn't look at them. He looked from the corner of the eye. He said, Brahma, he doesn't want that. Then Lord Vishnu comes. I'm very pleased with you. Ask any boon. He wouldn't look at it. I just say, look a little, what that's all. Not the one he wants. Shiva comes. And he still does the same thing. And they came, not once. Manu Sameep aaye bahubara. And intentionally, there is no mention of how many times. What's being pointed out, their whole austerity, sadhana, was a Godward movement. Movement leading to God, the Absolute. Limited forms of God, and that way, even when you think of Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer, Shiva, the destroyer, how are they described in the scriptures? Brahman through Sattvic Prakriti. Sattvic Prakriti is called Maya. Brahman through that veil of Prakriti appears as Brahma the creator, Vishnu the sustainer, Shiva the destroyer. And if your worship is confined to that level of God, then all these three deities are involved with the world process. And so they didn't look at them. Mangahu barabahu bhanti lobhaye, paramadhir nahi chalaye. And they try to persuade them. I'll give you all types of glory, lot of fame, wonderful children, lokeshana, vitteshana, putreshana. Give you lots of children, lot of fame, lot of glory. And Vishnu says, so I'll give you a lot of good qualities and virtues. In other words, the spiritual movement is not to deviate from the ultimate goal. Any deviation, no matter how wonderful it may be, if it is in the process of attaining the goal, then it is not deviation. But if deviation stops you from going further, then that's not a true devotee, will not go after it. If it goes after, that means he's immature. He's not ready. Mangahu barabahu bhati lobhaye. All types of boons they started promising, and they were not lured by them. Paramadhir nahi chalaye. So firm were they were rooted in their vrata, in their vow, they wouldn't move, they wouldn't buzz. Asthi matra hoi rahe sharira, tadapi manag banahi nahi pira. Your whole body became just a skeleton. And still we are doing practicing austerity. It's a figurative way of saying, you come to the core of your personality. Everything is ignored. Prabhu sarvagya dasanit vijajani, gati ananyata pasanriparani. Lord Rama, Brahman, recognized the profound aspiration of Manu and Shatarupa. And Rama recognized that he is my das, he is my servant. The moment he has recognized it, you must realize all those things come up, Upadrashta, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta. Will go after the devotee in all different stages. And prior to his appearance, his grace spoke out from the heavenly realm, Akashvani. Baramango, ask what you wish, and I will fulfill your wish. Mritak jiyavani gira suhai, shavan randhra hoi urjab ai. That nectarine voice was able to render that which is dead, turn it into life. In other words, king and queen, they became exceedingly healed. They became risht-pusht, well-nourished, joyous. But this is not a description of physical. This is the description of how internally they have been fulfilled. Of course, from another point of view, if you are internally very joyous, it will show up in your body. But that's not the point being highlighted. Shavan sudha samabachana suni, pulak prafullit gaat, bole manukari dandavat, premna hriday samat. Having heard those nectarine words, their bodies began to be inundated by a thrilling sensation. Manu offered adorations by adopting the Dandavat pose, and his heart was filled with love, devotion. And we will stop at this level. We're going very slowly. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.